In relationships, there's a line that you just don't cross. The line of no return. Seems like a mythical tale because most people don't seem to want to acknowledge that line of no return, or when it's been crossed and what to do about it. It sucks. Nobody wants to deal with it, and the consequences of crossing those lines just weighs heavy on both or all parties involved. So what happens if you've crossed a line of no return, or someone else has in your life, and you're not sure? You're like, have they? Or if they really have and you know for sure, what do you do about it? How do you handle it? Especially if you have to be around these people. You end up being around these people. So there's a few examples of how to navigate this. There's many repair paths. These are just some examples. However, there are no repair paths in certain situations, and that's some of the hardest parts of these, is that you have to come to terms with and grieve these things that you didn't necessarily cause in every relationship. So to start, if line has not been crossed, that's pretty simple. Like, you can just get right to it, deal with the conflict, people can apologize, and then they can change their behavior. Very simple. However, if that line has not been crossed, they apologize, they try to change their behavior, and then they continue doing the same thing, they can cross that line of no return. Even if they've apologized, even if they've attempted to change, even if they have changed some bit, it doesn't guarantee access or reconciliation and resolution. Now, when a line has been crossed, that is much more difficult. It's like, they knew, they did it, so now what are they going to do about it? And can they do anything about it? Because it's already been done. Now, if that line of no return is really important to you, then you'll stick to your non-negotiables. If you're going to have flimsy boundaries, you're probably going to let them cross that line again or regain access. And it's a hard thing. I think it's a challenging thing for most people to realize, like, this person's really important to me, I love them. However, like, just certain things have been said and done that no amount of trust building, rebuilding, repair work, apologizing, resolution, reconciliation, any of that, no matter change behavior or consistent apology over time, is actually going to change the fundamentals. So there really is no repair path for the line of no return being crossed. I think that when you try to return, it's the line of no return, right? You try to return and it doesn't happen because there is no coming back from it. They act the same, their character's flawed, or you just don't trust them the same way anymore. You just don't feel that level of cohesiveness. No matter what, it's done. So that's something that's the key of all of it, is to accept when it's been crossed. When it's almost been crossed, that means they're getting very close to, like, being done out of your life for good. And I think that's a very dangerous territory to get in relationships, because when people push toward that line, it erodes trust. When trust is eroded, it's harder to rebuild that trust. And once it shatters, it's just not the same. It's like kintsugi, like that Japanese art of fusing things with gold again. It might still look cool. It might be even more beautiful in certain ways. And then sometimes that's how trust is built over time, is by breaking trust and rebuilding it. But when it's too close to that line of no return, it starts to get you to question whether or not you actually want to repair it. Because once it's almost been crossed, you just get to this point where you're like, well, if I give them one more chance, they might actually cross that line. And if they do, then you are the one that's ending up feeling like the idiot, not them, because they, like, were the ones that pushed the boundary. You gave it another shot, and you came to find out that it just doesn't work. So a good way to protect yourself and keep yourself safe is to assess when it's getting close to that line of no return and to probably cut people off. If they really go above and beyond in that situation to show you that they care, to try to get you to realize that, they understand what they did is wrong and that they're going to change, and they actually start to show you that change really quickly on their own, you can maybe give them a second chance, but you don't give them that second chance. Like, they have to create that second chance and earn it. They have to come forth. They have to do the work. And if they don't, then there really is no way to bounce back from that. Or if they keep pushing closer to that line, or kind of just backtracking or slipping, eventually you're just gonna have to cut them off anyway. So you might as well save yourself time. In those situations, I think it's a case-by-case situation. It depends on the situation, right? If somebody was having a bad week or a bad time and they just almost crossed that line with you, or they crossed certain lines of no return but didn't cross like bigger ones, you could perhaps consider grace if it's more minute things. But still, if they've crossed any lines of no return, like small ones, big ones, it's usually just a no. If they've gotten close, it's usually no thanks. And so it's important to err on the side of caution with lines of no return. And the line of no return has repair paths before the line. After the line, not really. Sometimes in really rare circumstances, I say there are outliers where people are like willing to forgive, move on, but you don't really ever forget. You're always able to remember what happened. You always have that memory imprinted in your nervous system and tissue, and you're not able to regulate or kind of downshift as much in those situations. You're always going to feel that level of distrust on some level. It could be subconscious, it could be unconscious. So anyway, then we have the uncertainty if a line has been crossed. So there's like line has almost been crossed, like they almost crossed that line because they've crossed other boundaries. And there's a lot of things that can be crossed before the line of no return. There's consent, there's boundaries, there's respect, there's different things. But once somebody has shown you that they've either done it intentionally, if they've almost crossed it and they've kind of gone too far beyond your comfort zone with them or comfortability, and if they have apologized but continue to do it anyway, if any of those cases where it's just kind of far gone, then they're past that point of being able to like bounce back, you guys to be able to fix it. It's just complicated because, like, again, it's situational, but in most cases, like, even if they almost crossed it, like, it could be just they went too far already. And then if you're not sure about if they crossed it, because they crossed many lines, let's say, but then there's that final line where you're like, usually I would err on the side of yes, they crossed the line and no return. Because if you have to question it, then they probably crossed that line. The repair path only exists for people who have genuinely made mistakes, who have not attempted to cause you harm, who have not said sorry and then done the same things again and again and again and created a pattern. And where it's clear that they haven't crossed that line, if you're not clear, they probably crossed a line for you. If they almost crossed the line, then that's kind of already taking it a little too far. And then if they definitely crossed the line, they're out. So you have to be willing to let people go. And it's really hard because when you love people, it's like a journey. So if they crossed the line and you would like to be with them, or you have to be around them, then you can decide for you. Like, this isn't an all or nothing blanket statement, generalized approach, like you just black and white, yes or no. It's just up to you to discern what this means to you. And you could be the type of person where you say, you know what, this person crossed the line of no return. I'm not going to trust them in these ways anymore, but I'll trust them in these other ways. I won't be their friend, but I can do business with them. Or I won't do business with them, but I'll be their friend. I won't live with them. No way we're ever living together again, but we can still be friends. So you don't cut everybody off completely just because of any crossed boundaries or lines of no return. But there's a certain line of no return that's not situational. It's an overall line of no return. And so if you have to be around them, you have to deal with it in a certain way where you give them a taste of their own medicine, not by trying to prove a point to them, not by trying to explain to them that they crossed the line of no return, but really you do what you need for your own medicine, for your own healing, for your own sanity and safety, and to ensure your continuity and health and happiness, because they can be a threat to that. And if you have to be around them, or if you want to be around them, then you have to figure out some solutions. One of the things I think is so important to do is to set boundaries, like saying, yeah, I won't date you, but I can still be your acquaintance. Or I won't, lend you money, but I am down to go get coffee with you. So you can decide what works for you based on which lines of no return they crossed. But if they crossed the line of no return, like, they are done. Like, it's a no to them completely. So you can say no to people in different ways because they've crossed different lines of no return, but when it's the line of no return, that's the big difference, and that's something that's important to discern. So if it's the line of no return in lending them money, that's it, you're not lending them money anymore. If it's the line of no return that you lent them money and they screwed you over that badly, then it's the line of no return in any way with them, that's it. Big difference, but super important. So consequences, this is the actual line that encourages there to not be a crossing of the line of no return, or to not revisit. So there's not like a regurgitation of this violation. One of the important things is no contact. So when someone's crossed the line of no return, there's no contact. I know it's hard, I know it sucks. We don't want to ghost or abandon the people we love, but when they push things too far, then you don't interact with them anymore. Now, I've also been the person who's crossed other people's line of no return before, and they have stopped interacting with me. Now, there's a nice way to do this where you can explain to somebody that that's what you're doing and that they've crossed the line. That way you don't just abandon them and distance boundary violate in a way where you just withdraw and fall away and vanish like Houdini, without giving them the human decency and dignity and respect of compassion and kindness and grace, to at least give them closure and give yourself closure and accept that you're moving on. That ambiguity that people can keep others in when leaving relationships or punishing others with the silent treatment, that can actually be forms of emotional and psychological abuse, and reactive abuse is still abuse. So even if your line or their line of no return has been crossed, choosing to do no contact in a mean way can be harmful, especially if that person loves you or cares about you and they really didn't mean to hurt you, or they just screwed up. Like, sometimes people really screw up, and sometimes they screw up multiple times. So it's important to understand that, and even if you're cutting someone off because they've crossed that line of no return, let's still treat people like humans if we can. Now, that being said, it can be hard to treat certain people like humans if they display pathological behavior like narcissism or psychopathy or sociopathy, and they make you feel unsafe, and contacting them feels unsafe. Then you don't have to explain yourself. You just go no contact and block. But if you know that they love you and they care about you and they've just hurt you or themselves or crossed lines, I think it's good to at least treat them with kindness and not just be mean back, or mean for something they didn't mean to hurt you with. And if someone's expressing themselves and they cross the line of no return for you, going no contact and ghosting them can be really traumatizing, because they just were vulnerable with you and opened up. And even if something they said was inappropriate, they trusted you with something very personal to them. So even though you might not feel comfortable with it, put yourself in other people's shoes and do your best to still act and behave in kind ways if you can, because just going cold turkey and cutting people off without anything, becoming cold and harsh, isn't the answer either, because then you're crossing a line of no return for them, and later if you try to repair that relationship, it's probably not going to happen. Or if they try to repair it with you and they've just distanced, you're probably not going to want to hang out with them anymore or talk to them, because just because someone crossed a line of no return doesn't mean they've crossed the line of no return. And even if they've crossed the line of no return, that doesn't mean you should then go cross the line of no return with them in one or multiple ways, or the ultimate line altogether. And sometimes that line can be crossed by people not doing certain things, like not showing up, not being there for a certain amount of time. And so if you don't show up, if you don't communicate, if you ghost, if you flake, if you abandon, if you betray in ways like going against loyalty and trust you've built because they've done so in other ways, or they've crossed lines, you're just going to fuel the fire and destroy the rest of the relationship or any chance of resolution, reconciliation, or repair. So I wouldn't do that because that's hurtful. At the same time, if somebody is going no contact, that's communication, that's data. Like, it's important to respect that and not try to force it or bulldoze them. And it's good to say, like, hey, I understand that you don't want to communicate with me right now. I'm good on that, and like, I respect that. And you just give them space. Or you see that they blocked you, so you just stop trying to reach out to them because obviously they don't want to talk to you. Or they might be putting on a show and trying to manipulate or play games and want you to push further to get access to them or to prove that you're sorry. But after multiple attempts, if you've tried to contact them, then you should just respect their no and their space and let them be, because if somebody wants you in their life, they'll make sure of that. And so no contact can also be where, like, if they tell you that they don't want to talk to you anymore and you've crossed the line of no return, you should probably stay away from them. Like, at a certain point, if somebody's told you that it's over and they don't want to repair and you keep doing it, then that kind of translates into potential harassment. And that can become a pattern that's like just dysfunctional and kind of like non-consensual. And it can like violate their boundaries again and again and cause like compound trauma and post-traumatic stress, like things that I can't diagnose, right? But like, they can experience symptoms of different disorders or traumas because of things that you do. So you don't want to traumatize people and then they need years of therapy. That's not fun. And you don't want to push people's boundaries where they feel like you're creepy or you're trying too hard or you're forcing it or they already told you no or they don't want to or they're just not interested. Then you look desperate. And so if somebody's like blocking you or vanishing or not talking to you about what you did and not giving you feedback, that also reflects their character and level of maturity and willingness to communicate, their emotional availability, their health and functionality. So it's like more of a reflection of their own character rather than a reflection on you. The only place it reflects on you is if you crossed a line of no return. Like, you crossed a line, you're human, unless you intentionally meant to hurt them or you just kept doing things when you knew better, which even if you did, that's human too. But if you caused severe harm or it actually impacted them in like serious ways, that's one thing. But if they were just upset about something, like, they could have at least just told you they were upset and just said like, I'm done, then at least you would have known, so that way you could move on as well, or you can like understand feedback to improve. So even if people cross lines of no return, I think it's, before going no contact, I think it's important to give people consequences, but also give people feedback. Like, let people know what they did wrong so they don't screw the next person over, or they don't keep repeating the pattern in their life and pushing people away, or they don't realize that, they just got ghosted. They actually understand, oh, like, I did this thing and that's why this person's not talking to me. So it keeps people in like this gray area where you're not sure exactly why they cut you off or which line of no return you crossed or what the big line of no return is for them. And so it's important to communicate those boundaries or that feedback when cutting people off and going no contact, if you can, if it's safe, and vice versa, to request that. And if they don't give it to you, then you just got to self-reflect. You got to understand, why did they cut you off? Usually it's pretty self-explanatory. But at the same time, sometimes you don't know. There's a whole list of reasons. And relationships like that, where somebody was not giving you feedback or willing to give you feedback, usually wouldn't have lasted anyway, because relationships require communication, comprehension, receptivity, reciprocity, understanding, awareness, and actual change behavior, which none of that can really occur unless somebody interacts with you and communicates with you about how they feel. You can ask, you can listen, you can pay attention. It's just only to an extent. So if lines of no return were crossed because they weren't communicated, that's a situation where you can consider repair, because sometimes people cross the line of no return and you realize that only after. But like I said, there's situational lines of no return, and then there's the line of no return, which is the line of no return. It's like this this mythological place thing that you can't see, but it's there. And once it happens, it's pretty clear that it's there, and you can realize it's actually real. It's not just fantasy. For a lot of people, it seems like fantasy because they don't want it to be reality, but it is. And if you cross that line and you stay and deal with them, it's misery. So you have to limit access. Limiting access is going to save you. You have to limit your exposure to them and their exposure to you, and you have to limit how much they can be around you or talk to you. Now, I've had people cross the line of no return with me, and then they tried to spin it on me and then make it seem like I crossed the line of no return with them and they're going to give consequences to me. So I gave them consequences back, and I showed them that they crossed the line of no return. I limited access. Now, after I did that, I attempted to reach out to them again, and they didn't put in any effort into reconciling or resolving the issues. So then I felt like they were crossing more lines of no return because more time had passed. Over time, I attempted to communicate with them and reach out, and got nothing after that. So the first time I actually got something, but no sorry. I was the only one saying sorry. And at that point, the line of no return hadn't been crossed fully. Like, there was a line that has been crossed, but like there was still chance for repair. But once they didn't take accountability a couple months after that, when I reached out, that was starting to cross. It was almost there. So I cut them off again, and I waited. And over time, as time drifted, and they never took accountability and said, sorry, that line of no return was crossed for me. Now, a couple of years later, I kept trying to message them, and I kept getting nothing. And so I should have just moved on. Yet, being Delulu and, romantic feelings or emotions, memories, and friendship, and like true intimacy and closeness and trust that had been built, which still felt like it existed on some level because there was that ambiguity of that line not being crossed or being crossed. There was still a hope. There was a false hope, but there was a hope of intermittent reinforcement, right? Having those inconsistently met needs by somebody gets you kind of hooked to that trauma bond, that potential of that small likelihood that they'll finally show up and meet your needs again, even though they've gone avoidant or no contact or kind of like shamed or guilt tripped you or manipulated you or whatever it might be, abused you and abandoned you, neglected you, betrayed you, just mistreated you, mishandled you, right? So even though they mishandled me at that point, I still believed that there was potential for us to interact, but they kept ghosting my new messages. And I tried Instagram, I tried email, I really cared. I did my best to express my love and care and to be there. And at that point, it didn't matter. And when I tried to follow them, I think they would make me unfollow them or something like that. Or I don't even think I tried to follow them at that point. So like fast forward a little later, and it's been 2 years, and we ran into each other. And this person, they had crossed the line of no return for me at that point. It was too long, too much time had passed. And they were the real reason why the relationship fell apart. I was part of the reason, we were both, but the bottom line was they mistreated me because I held them accountable. They said and did things I was not okay with. I brought it up, and they deflected onto me and tried to hand me consequences for what they did or for how I was expressing or communicating myself. So I said no. They're getting the consequences. So I cut them off, and I went no contact. I limited access. And instead of them realizing what they did wrong, when I tried to reach back out, that was my mistake. I unblocked them. I tried to reach back out. That was my mistake. I should have just stayed no contact because they crossed a line. And at that point, it was the line of no return in that situation. They could have returned because they didn't cross the line of no return in our relationship, but they did cross the line of no return. And so we weren't going to be able to go back to me just enabling them or agreeing with everything they said because I called them out. They didn't like that. That's the line of no return. We're not going back to me not ever calling them out. I'm going to call them out when I need to. Okay? But that can be a line of no return can be a forward motion into deeper closeness and intimacy or deeper trust because you're going into new territory, right? Beyond the line of no return is the unknown. It's like you don't know what's there. It could be the end of the relationship, or it can be a new form or level of the relationship if you can let go of that comfortable line that you've been used to, or the way that you've been handling things and the patterns you've been used to and how you've been operating. because you're like, oh, we crossed this line of no return, like I'm not going to keep enabling you. Well, that means that now we go into the territory where I hold you accountable, we hold each other accountable, so we elevate. So some lines of no return can actually be a good thing, where you just don't go back to that same way of doing things. Or for example, like if you cross the line into friendship, beyond friendship into romance, that line is possible where you just don't go back to being friends ever again. You just date or you hook up. Of course, you're still friends if you're dating, but you don't just go back to friendship. Like you guys always hook up again, or you date, or you just don't be friends after you break up because you guys dated. So it can grow and it can also be destructive. It depends. So you have to set healthy boundaries. You have to decide for yourself that enough is enough. Like if people are not clear about what it is that they want, and then they play games, that you're gonna have to cut them off. If people are like being ambivalent, if they're crossing some lines, not others, you have to discern what's good for you. Now, if you're always around people and you have to be around them, like a coworker or family member or a partner or person who you parent children with, business partners, whoever, then you have to set those healthy boundaries and you have to communicate with people like, hey, I'm not okay with this, I'm okay with this. But don't tell people, show people what you're not okay with. And show people that when they cross the line of no return, they don't get to come back from that. Like you're not gonna give them more time, you're not gonna listen to them, you're not gonna give them more energy, you're not gonna give them more money, you're not gonna continue interacting with them, collaborating with them, you're not gonna give them more sex or love or intimacy, you're not gonna continue to give them romantic dates or whatever it might be, gifts, generosity. If they've crossed a line of no return, you giving them generosity is going to enable them. It's going to tell them that they can treat you that way. And that's exactly what happened. So I learned like you can still be around people, but you have to just limit how much they can mistreat you by setting healthy boundaries. Okay, I'm going to be around this person all the time. All right, then I can't put up with this or that, or I'm going to do this beforehand, or I'm going to tell them this, or I'm going to show them this, or I'm going to do whatever I need to survive that. Because if I don't, then I'm going to be bulldozed, my boundaries are going to be stampeded, or I'm just going to be projected on. They're just not going to consider me, right? So I have to go above and beyond to consider myself and put my best interests first and put myself in the place where I am able to receive that which I want, regardless of if I'm around them. And if they've crossed lines of no return with me, then I'm not going to talk to them as much as I can if I'm around them, or just going to limit how much we have to interact. Oh, we're taking care of the children together? Okay, when am I picking up Mary? When are you dropping off John? You know, stuff like that, where it's like you're just not going into like oversharing or trusting them. Or one day, you know, they're nice and they got you chocolates, so now they're like, do you want to go get coffee together? And you're like, sure. You know, when you feel like that, you're like, no, I really don't want to. Thanks for the chocolates. You know, stuff like that, where you just have to let people know that they can't just get unlimited access to you. They can't just do what they want and then come back in. They have to understand that when their actions impact you, there's consequences, and they can't weasel their way back in or manipulate their way back in. People are great at that. So healthy boundaries prevent that. Like one time I had somebody show up at my place where I used to live, where my family was still living, without my consent, to try to reconcile. And they had already crossed the line of no return. So it was best for me to keep them cut off. But because they showed up, they tried to weasel their way back in. And because it was the day before their birthday or whatever, then I had more grace. So people who are highly manipulative will try to test and push your boundaries and regain access even when that line of no return has been crossed. So there's a cross, right? Like an X for the line of no return. Think of it like that. So when they no return, you can just X them out of your life and just keep it X'd out. Because let's say on one of those TV shows where there's a bunch of judges, once they click the button to like either let somebody in or cut somebody off, or once they say it's a no from me, they don't go back and be like, oh, actually, never mind, usually, right? Especially if that person's audition was horrible. Now, if somebody's audition wasn't an audition, they were already in, right? They were in a friendship or relationship with you, and then deep in they go and they screw up the performance. You're not going to be like, yeah, it's a yeah from me. Nor are you going to be like, okay, let's continue. You're going to be like, you're cut off. Like, you're on the chopping block. You're not the chef. You're not the singer. You're not the person who's supposed to be the best one in America or in the world. So you're done. And you don't just tell people that. You show people that. And you communicate it in a way where they don't get to just come back. And so one of the most unhealthy things is if you just let people come back in because they showed up before their birthday, or they drove across the country to see you and showed up at your family's house unannounced, which then they'll say all the sorries that you want to hear. They'll tell you that they love you. They'll love bomb you. They'll withhold certain information, and then they'll surprise you with reasons that explain exactly why you left in the first place. And you'll feel like a fool because you met up with them, or you trusted them, or you gave them access, or you had a conversation with them, when really they didn't deserve one. And so similarly to the person I blocked when they crossed the line of no return years ago, I learned I should have kept them blocked. I should have kept the people from visiting. I should have kept the people from having access to me by having healthy boundaries and saying, you know what, I'm good. I think you just waited too long, too much time has passed, and you crossed too many lines of no return for me, that you've crossed the line of no return, and so I don't want a relationship or a friendship with you anymore, and I'm just gonna have to say no, and for those reasons I'm out. Stick to your guns, back out, unsubscribe, defund energetically, and divest. It would be the word for your focus. Like, divest your focus and attention from the people who don't deserve access to you and don't deserve access to your energy and time and money and resources and life. Like, they've broken that trust, they've crossed those lines, and you shouldn't just give them it back just because you love them, or just because you care about them, or because it's Valentine's Day, or it's a holiday, or it's their birthday, or it's something sad happened to them, or they're struggling, or whatever. It's like, it's really not your problem. I know it's kind of harsh and cold, but what do? Like, you got to defend and protect and keep safe your peace of mind, your health, your dignity, your self-respect, your self-love. And every time I have not, it's costed me. Every time I have not, I've found out the hard way that I should have, would have, could have, just stuck to my guns. And you live in regret, because what do you really lose when you cut off contact and access from somebody, or when you set really strong boundaries with someone you see often who you don't want to treat you in certain ways? What do you really lose? Nothing. You lost something, which was the relationship with them. It was them. But what do you really lose? Not really anything. If they didn't treat you right, then you just lost somebody not treating you right. And that's a hard thing, because grief is real. Like, you do lose the person and the relationship and the good things, right? You do lose something. You can't just say it's nothing. But it's also ultimately pretty much headed nowhere, because unless they're willing to change that and repair and treat you right, it's not anything. It's just pretty much like a facade, or it's a half-assed, part-time, temporary people type of dynamic, which is not something consistent, solid, or respectable. And your time would be probably more valuable spent on other people who are actually committed to growth and change, actually committed to repair and resolution and reconciliation. So those people don't really deserve to just get back in. So unblocking them, messaging them, that's desperate. That sounds gross. Like, of course they're gonna leave you unread or in requested messages and not follow you back if you follow them, or unfollow you, or make you unfollow them, and block you and make you out to be the bad guy, because you just gave up leverage for your self-respect, which gives them that leverage to disrespect you and then now play victim and control the whole dynamic and act like you've crossed the line of no return for them, because they can. Now, as time passes, and let's just say you block them again like I did, the line of no return gets crossed in a big way because of how much time has passed and they haven't attempted to reach you. If they haven't attempted to reach you and a lot of time has passed, you're allowed to be like done for good, for life. Because there's struggles you've been through, there's suffering, there's grief, there's loss, there's pain, there's human experiences that if they weren't there for and they didn't support you, especially if you supported them, especially if you were there for them through their thick and thin, through their highs and lows, through their sickness or good health, or you were pretty much there till death do you part, and then they just did it apart and they pretty much left you for dead. Why would you want to be around someone like that? That person literally showed you that they don't care about you and they only care about themselves, and they only care to get what they can get and want, and then they only care as long as it's comfortable for them and they don't have to do the work to look at their own shadow or be accountable. That's a big line of no return. And so, trying to go back on that, when we did run into each other, I did the same exact thing that I had done. I gave them access that they didn't deserve. They had already crossed the line of no return, but they went in for a hug without consent. That's a very manipulative way people try to get back from the line of no return. They'll just go in for a hug without consent, without verbal consent. That's a no. That's a line of no return. Like, nope, they're crossing more lines of no return, like violating consent boundaries. No thanks. And at that point, they had my number still. I didn't know their number, even though I have a numerical memory. I had to ask them what happened, and they had said that it just be like that sometimes. But that was a deflection and gaslight and escape mechanism to avoid facing that the reason I didn't have their number was because I deleted it and I blocked them. And the reason that happened was because of the way they were behaving and communicating with me. And the reason we hadn't spoken and I felt uncomfortable with that hug was because we didn't have established verbal consent boundaries still in place, because enough time had passed that I didn't feel the same. And so they didn't have the right to just go in for a hug, and I let them. And so after I let them, I also had given them the heads up to text me, which was desperate and gross, and they texted me their number, so now I had their number. And that's when I screwed up. It was at that moment I knew I screwed up, because although we had like texted back and forth and had a positive interaction, that whole experience taught them that they could mistreat me, that I would come back to them on Valentine's Day, and then they could still reject me again by not putting in any effort into relationships romantically, and not putting in any effort into fixing the friendship, even after I apologized. That's like a pushover person who's just desperate. Like, that just makes them look like a clown. So I looked like a clown, and I had gone back to trying to interact with them again and again for a couple of years, and then when we ran into each other, I gave them access to me again, which they didn't deserve. So what did that do? That showed them that I'm willing to put up with anything. So that night, after we met and I got their number and we texted, they crossed another line of no return, the same one again that had happened 2 years ago. And the list goes on and on and on of the ways they didn't take real accountability by not saying an actual apology, by saying they were sorry for how things ended, only to continue crossing more lines of no return by not showing up when I was attempting to give them something to get closure, by not following through on plans or being concrete and making time or prioritizing the relationship, by not really being there as a friend during hard times or trying to show up and make things happen, by not including me in things that I wanted to be included in, and acting in cold ways. And then ultimately, by continuing to postpone things enough while I was dealing with so many crises and struggles, that the line of no return naturally got crossed again. And it had already been crossed multiple times. It's just, it became so much that it's like, I felt like the only way to get closure was to say more or do more or give them more, and to give them everything I had to give, so I can finally say I did my best and I did everything and I did enough and I am enough, and to feel worthy and lovable and complete, because I had felt so unworthy and unlovable and shattered and fragmented from the abandonment, from the getting projected onto, from the betrayal of trust with somebody who crossed lines of no return with me, which I was just attempting to help them be a better person and change their behavior and change how they communicated and be sensitive and understanding of my feelings. And I just wanted love and care, and I was blamed as if I was crossing lines of no return, and like I was this bad person for expressing myself, and I felt shamed and kind of just guilt tripped and blamed for their own behavior. And so it's very immature and very toxic and manipulative, dysfunctional and narcissistic behavior when people do that. And so the line of no return can be used as a gaslight. It can be used as an emotional abuse mechanism, just like any tool, to tell you that you're the bad guy, you're crossing lines of no return for me, I'm done. And it's a great way to escape responsibility, because they're like, oh, I didn't do anything, you did. I'm out, bye, it's all your fault, you deal with it, you're the reason the relationship failed. And you're like, seriously? You're the one that crossed my lines of no return. And they'll be like, no, I didn't. Or they're not even there to talk about it, they already left. And then when they see you again, they act like nothing happened. And meanwhile, you seem to still be the one that's wrong. And then when you ask them what happened, they'll just say, oh, I'm sorry it ended that way too. Not, I'm sorry for how I treated you and what I did and how it hurt you and how I wasn't there and all these things, and how you were there for me the whole time and I just didn't, reciprocate. And when it came time to being a better person and you tested my beliefs or questioned my behavior and held me accountable, instead of growing up and being mature and being an adult or being a man or a woman or whoever, being a grown person, I instead acted like a child, and instead I just deflected onto you. I ran away. I blamed you for how you felt. I blamed you for the experience. And ultimately, I crossed the line of no return by not taking accountability within a certain time frame, or when you did and when you attempted to reach back out, then I continued to. And once, I had access again and I ran into you, instead of actually communicating and fixing things, I just pretended nothing happened and continued to cross more lines of no return. But see, people don't do that. They don't actually apologize, or they don't change, they don't realize these things, because they know what they're doing. They know they've crossed lines of no return, but they don't care. They don't want to do the work to fix it. They rather blame you. And then they rather continue to cross lines of no return. They rather continue waiting more time, because they think that time passing just fixes everything. That's the biggest gaslight of all, is the time passing gaslight. It's like, well, time's passed, everything's fine, life goes on, let it go. Just let it go, you moved on. But they don't say that. They'll just go in for a hug without consent, or they'll just wait for you to tell them to text you. They won't ask for your number. And so there was a lot of errors along the way where it was like, I shouldn't have asked them to text me, right? I shouldn't have given them the hug. I shouldn't have tried to hang out with them or talk to them. I shouldn't have acted like everything's okay. But that's the issue, is with lines of no return crossed, a lot of people placate. We feel like we have to people please, we have to give people something, we have to act like everything's fine, especially in social situations where it's a lot easier to. It is uncomfortable to be like, hey, no, I don't want your hug, like, get away from me. And then to be like, what the heck just happened? And then other people to be like, what the fuck? But I think it's important to understand that that's the toughest love sometimes you can give other people and yourself, and they'll respect you more. When they've crossed your lines of no return, you have to show it to them. You have to stick to it and say, no, you crossed my line of no return, you're not getting a hug, I'm not asking you for your number, I don't care, I'm moving on with my life, I'm here to have fun and enjoy myself, there's other people to connect to and with. And you don't reach out to them. Like, they crossed a line, you blocked them, keep them blocked. Anytime you unblock them and try to message them something, you end up at risk for them blocking you, and now you can't block them. Or you end up at risk where you sent this message to them and they don't say anything back, so now you're hooked again onto this intermittent reinforcement potential that they could reach out back one day. And if you don't change your number, if you keep your Facebooks and Instagrams and social media accessible, then they can try to reach out again. But even if they reach out, there's no point. Like, you shouldn't deal with people like that, because they're not healthy, they're not functional, and they're actually abusive. And so it doesn't matter how many messages you send. One more message isn't going to do it. One last conversation, one more hug. All this is going to lead to is more suffering for you, probably unnecessary suffering, because you already knew better. You already cut them off. So why would you let them back in? It's like why would you invite a vampire into your home if you already slayed them, or if you already got them out of your home? Like, that's just like asking for something bad to happen. So Instead, let's ask for something good to happen. Let's like celebrate the people who bring us joy and treat us right. And let's like just not compromise on our boundaries. Like, if you need to drink water, you know. You don't have to be perfect. That's the beauty about life. Whether it's videos or whether it's relationships, like, embrace imperfection, take care of yourself, and be willing to tell people, like, no, just not feeling it anymore. Do things that are going to bring you joy, even if you don't look perfect. Embarrass yourself. Be ashamed. Be in front of everybody and look like a fool. But that's better than feeling like an idiot behind closed doors and not being able to sleep at night because you knew that I shouldn't have done that thing, and dang it, why did I do it? Why did I let them treat me that way? And always remember that, because that's like the worst. So you might need to find professional help. I highly suggest this to everyone. I'm not a doctor, I can't recommend, but from my experience, therapy has helped. There are many different resources that can assist you. One of the best ones I've seen is BetterHelp. And then there's other ones that are online. Usually if you have insurance, therapy is covered, or you can get like a copay, or you can just go pay out of pocket once a month or whatever. Also, AI has been really helpful, like talking to chat with voice chat and various AI platforms, or just journaling. Also using voice recordings where you record your own voice and listen to it. But getting psychotherapy, psychiatry, different help. People need medication, and their doctor and psychiatrist has determined that they may need medication, and that might help. I usually go the naturopathic route with things if I can, and more holistic, but sometimes medication helps people and they require it, and that's up to them and their medical professional to determine. But some people and things might make you need medication or feel like you need medication and contribute to or cause disorders in your psychology with their behavior or their absence of behavior. And so you need to get professional help at times if you need to get professional help. Like, you can't just do it yourself or try to do it with friends, or it's going to ruin your friendships or get them to be your therapist. And you can't do it alone. You're not supposed to. I mean, you can, and you're going to suffer and end up miserable, like I have at times doing it myself. But then when you get help, it's like, it's like relief. So the consequence of somebody crossing line of no return is that you might have to find professional help to deal with the damage that they caused, or the love that they didn't show when you really needed it. And so there's the stay away and forgive, but don't forget. That's the key. So the key is to stay away and realize that, if the line has been crossed, that's it. You stay away, you forgive, but you don't forget. And that's the key. If it's not been crossed, you can still stay away if you want to. They can take their time to fix the relationship, but you can also distance yourself in healthy ways if you just don't feel like being around them all the time. Like, the super important thing to understand in this is that just because someone has crossed the line of no return didn't mean you always want to hang out with them before that. Like, just because they haven't crossed the line of no return doesn't mean that you're actually interested in them as a person or you want to be around them all the time, nor are you obligated to give people access. Like, you're the one that's steering the ship of your life. You get to determine who you give access to and how much of it, and whether or not they get anything from you. And that's the most beautiful realization, is like, you're like, oh, these lines, they're my lines. Like, I get to decide who crosses them or not, or what consequences they get for crossing them. Like, it's your universe. Like, you're not the creator of the entire universe, but you're the creator of your universe, and like, you're the manifestor of your universe, and you're the CEO of your company, you're the director of your movie, so you get to call the shots and run the script, and you get to decide who's fired and hired, and they don't get to choose that. They can throw a fit, or they could just act like they don't care and be cold-hearted or just numb and insensitive. They can also just give you enough breadcrumbs to keep you hooked, right? And they can just come back in and keep you intermittently reinforced. And that's when you have to realize they're no good for you. If they can't show up consistently, if their behavior can't change, if they're not willing to do the work, cut them off. They're just a dead end. They're a liability. They are costing you more than they're depositing. Like, they're just withdrawing. They're just an energy drain, energy vamp. Why would you go back to that? It's like you're asking for trouble, you know? If you knew they were trouble when they walked in, why would you stay and then try to get them to stay and then try to come back and get them to come back when it's trouble with them? They're trouble. It doesn't spell anything good. They're just bad news bears. Let them be. Let them go be bad news bears somewhere else. You focus on good news bears and be good news for yourself and keep it good for you and others and move on, because these people, they don't change usually. They keep crossing more lines, or they'll blame you for crossing lines in a return. They're not going to fix things, and they can't fix things, because even if they say sorry or change, it's been too long. They've crossed too many lines, and they've crossed the line of no return, where it's like, even if you punish them, if you give them like, you know, consequences and try to get them to suffer as much as you suffered, it's not going to make it right. It's not going to fix it. It's not going to make it time machine go back in time and get all the time back that you lost and wasted. And it's not going to get you back to the point of the line of no return. And, you know, an example that's really interesting is, let's say someone crosses a line, but they don't cross the line of no return, and you give them reconciliation or forgiveness, or you're willing to have grace and look past it, and now they cross the line of no return. I don't think there's any going back from that, especially when they don't care. I think the most important thing to pay attention to is, do they care? Like, do they genuinely even give a crap about when you've said that they've crossed the line of no return for you? Do they care when you cut off access to you? Like, does it impact them at all? Or do they just move on with their life like nothing happened? When you block them, do they even try reaching out from another number or account? Or do they even think of you? Or do they even attempt to do anything on themselves? Or do they just not care? Of course, a bad way to test that, but a good way to find out is if you message them by unblocking them and messaging them. If they don't respond, they literally don't care. Or if they respond with something rude, that's even worse. And then if they don't respond again and again after they've been rude, like, it's just, they've shown you so many times that they don't really consider how you feel or your best interest. That's not really loving or love. It's mistreatment and neglect and probably abuse. Now, if they really don't care and don't respond at all, or don't say anything mean, or if they call you back and then, you know, they ghost you when you try to call back, all kinds of weird ways people do. But ultimately, if they just neglect you, neglect is actually a form of abuse. So it's important to accept that, like, somebody who cares about you would be affected by you cutting them off. They would be affected by crossing your line of no return. They would care that they did so. They would want to find out what they did and how to fix it. And if they don't, then they probably didn't really care in the first place. And sure, they might have crossed the line of no return, which means that they can't fix it, or you won't accept their bullshit anymore. You're not going to enable access, and you might forgive them with the apology, but you're just not going to be the same friends or partners or whatever anymore. That's fine, but they should at least care, no? Like, not out of obligation or should, like, guilt trip, but like, wouldn't someone who cares about you and has cared the whole time actually put in the work to consider that, wow, what they did really hurt you? And wouldn't they be affected on some level, like emotionally? Wouldn't they feel upset? Like, oh my gosh, they just lost access to somebody they care about. That relationship means a lot to them. Like, yikes, like, what do? I need to say sorry, I need to fix things. Like, if they don't feel that way, they don't really care. And that's kind of mind-boggling to realize, is like, when people cross your line of no return, you cut them off, they show you they don't care. The relationship doesn't mean much to them. They just replace it. They just go fill the void with somebody else, something else. You were just there. They meant more to you than you meant to them. And that's a hard realization. It's like, they actually don't mind losing you. Or they're that arrogant that they think they're always going to have access to you, and they'll always be able to get you back, or you're always going to come back to them no matter what. they do or say or don't do or say, and that's just even more egocentric and narcissistic and dysfunctional, that they think that they're so high on a horse that you're beneath them. And the day can come where you realize that they were actually beneath you, but not in the way like you're better than them. It's that they didn't value you how you valued them or the relationship. You weren't on the same level of respect and love, and so you were valuing them, and you care to lose them because obviously you're hurt by it. You're trying to come back to them, you're trying to unblock them. You didn't want to block them in the first place. You're trying to give them grace, you're trying to have understanding, you're trying to apologize to them for what you did. You go above and beyond, even though you might have not even crossed line of no return or any lines of no return, or they were the ones that were at fault, but you reacted, so now you feel like you have to say sorry, and they just put it all on you, or they just don't take anything on like responsibility or apology. So you, by proxy, feel like it's all on you because there's all this heaviness and unresolved conflict and trauma, and you're just sitting there and no one's doing anything. So eventually you're like, at least I'm gonna try. And when they don't try, that's pretty revealing. I mean, if they don't initiate and then they don't try when you initiate, it's kind of dismal, and it's an abyss that if you keep trying to dig yourself into and out of, it's draining. So I highly encourage you to accept when people have crossed that line of no return in the first place. That way you don't have to sit here and listen to an hour talk about it or whatever. And also that you don't have to sit there and try to cut people off again and block them and reblock them and unblock them and write them messages and realize they don't care. And it's like, you knew they don't care. They showed you they don't care, right? And so there's that quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When someone shows you they don't care, believe them. I believe it was Maya Angelou. Amazing quote. You don't have to wonder. I mean, their behavior already showed you a while ago. So why go back to the same insane thing? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result is insanity. So instead of being insane, I encourage you to accept. I know it's hard. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to ever see this person in my lifetime again. We're not going to be friends. I'm not going to be able to spend time with them. We're not going to be able to create memories. This sucks. It hurts. I love them. I care about them. Oh no. Well, yeah, that's grief. And it's painful. And one of the worst things is having to continue living while somebody's alive and not being able to see them or talk to them, even though you really want to, and they just don't. But you have to accept that. And it's like, it's worse sometimes than them being dead, because like, at least if they were dead, then they couldn't talk to you. But the fact that they can and they're choosing not to, it's kind of worse. So that like grief and pain is kind of immeasurable when it's your person. Like if you lose your person, like the person closest to you, that can destroy you, and it can cause a lot of pain and harm, and it can cross lines of no return where you don't really trust people the same anymore, or humans, and you lose self-trust because you trusted them too much, especially if you trusted them too much and you over-trusted and overgave and overshared and let them have access too much too soon again, then it does something to you that it's just hard to reconcile with, but you have to stop trying to reconcile with them. Literally, no more reconciliations. You have to decide that you're done. Cut your losses, move on. I know it's hard. It's like having a house burn down. It sucks, right? But what are you gonna do? Cry about it? Okay, it doesn't build the house back up. There's other homes. There's other places to build with people. There's other land. There's other construction workers. And if they're not willing to carry the bricks, then they're not the ones to build with. I love that quote because it's true. Like if you have to convince people to do the work, to be authentic, to try to repair things, they're not the ones to have a relationship with. They're not the ones to have a friendship with, especially if they've crossed the line of no return. I mean, think about how silly that is. They cross lines of no return, or the line of no return. They're not willing to carry bricks to build a house with you. Meanwhile, you've been carrying bricks the whole time. You're asking them to carry a couple bricks, and they freak out on you and are like, I'm not carrying any bricks, and they throw a whole conniption fit and act like a brat and throw a fit and throw a tantrum over the fact that you're just like, can you finally carry some of your bricks and stop throwing all your bricks at everybody else? And no, they throw bricks at you and they tell you that if you don't stop telling them to carry their bricks, they're gonna stop talking to you. And you're like, And then they blame you for feeling how you feel about their bricks. I mean, imagine how crazy that sounds. And they're the ones who cross lines of no return. And now you try to carry some bricks. And you're like, hey, I've come back. I'm going to carry some bricks. And then they just sit there. They just watch you carrying bricks again. And they don't do anything. They just listen to the fact that you're struggling without them. And they let that happen. I mean, just imagine how crazy that visual appears. But that's what happens when you unblock people or you try to go befriend them or be friends with them or talk to them again. It just doesn't work, especially if they don't carry bricks with you or they don't say sorry and mean it and change. What are you doing? You look like a fool, you know? And so there's this quote that says, like, never refriend a snake and let it bite you twice or whatever. So it's like, whether it's family or friends or partners or whoever, if they screwed you on like money, respect, reputation, career, relationships, health, happiness, success, freedom, different things that are like priceless, and your spiritual sovereignty, they screwed you on any level that's like irreparable, final no return, then it's not repairable. Like, it's irreparable. You have to understand that. Like, you don't just come back from that. There's no resiliency. There's no phoenix mode, right? There's sometimes you can phoenix your way out of things with someone. Rebirth from the ashes. They start out like, they surprise you. They become a new person. They give you a bunch of gifts and money and love and care or something. And then you're like, wow, I think they've changed. Like, that happens when lines of no return have been crossed. That happens when people have done character development. They've had years of struggles and work and worked on themselves and actually put the time and energy in to get healthier, to get more fit, to manifest more in their career, to improve their finances, to improve how they handle money, to improve how they handle their time, to accumulate things that they enjoy, to get education, to acquire skills and tools and resources, and transform their character. More than all the other things they can accumulate, they actually build their character, they change their personality, they live according to their values, they become a different vibe. That's the kind of person that you're like, holy shit, like, I actually want to be around them or be with them. But you can't have them Phoenix mode if they cross the line of no return or many lines of no return. Doesn't matter how much they Phoenix mode. Now you're just unimpressed. Oh, cool, you did that? Don't care. Oh, you're a different person? Irrelevant, just noise. Because too much time has passed, too much has happened, and it's just not the same anymore. So at that point, you got to focus on new people. You got to go toward relationships that are compatible, available, healthy, functional, and where people don't disrespect you. People don't assume access to you and that you're always going to be around and that you're permanent. And they also actually get upset or sad and hurt, or they actually feel pain when they lose you or access to you, or there's a risk of it. And so they ensure that they keep access to you by treating you right. Just remember that piece, that if somebody shows you they don't care that they're about to lose you or that they did lose you, they don't care. It's a hard one to accept. Or if they aren't showing their feelings, then they're inauthentic. And if they're using that act of not caring and being cold-hearted as a manipulation strategy to punish you, that's carelessness. And that's, again, another form of emotional and psychological abuse. And it's a power play control dynamic and way to leverage things as if they're playing this checkers or chess game against you, and they're actually playing checkers, and meanwhile you're playing like 4D or 5D chess, and it's checkmate because they really played themselves out of your life. And who loses in the end? It's the people who lost really good people because they were unaccountable. They crossed lines of no return, and they didn't have to do that, or they continued to, and they never tried to repair things when they were given chance or initiation by others. They never initiated. They never showed empathy or care. They never showed remorse for their actions. And if they did, they gave you just enough apology to keep you hooked until they would abandon you again, or until they would play you again, or until you had no choice but to cut them off again because they didn't actually change. So all those things are kind of like a headache, and they spend so much of your precious time on people and things that ultimately lead nowhere. They're a dead end. The more you'll understand that they're a dead end and you see it clearer, the better it'll be. I'm intending to make a video on dead end people, and it's a huge topic because so many people are just not going anywhere, and they're going to take you down with them like crabs in a bucket. So it's super important for you to understand like who's actually on your side, who supports you, who cares about you. Because somebody saying they love you and care about you is not them supporting you. They have to actually show it with their time, energy, money, and resources in life, and like with their action toward you and how they treat you and talk about you or talk to you. And so we project too much onto people like they're this wonderful thing. We glorify them, idealize them, but actually they're not as great as they seem. They're a dead end. They're not headed anywhere, or if they're headed somewhere, it's to a cap, it's to an extent, and then after that, they're not going anywhere. So you have to determine that early on. The sooner you'll be able to determine if someone's a dead end person or dead end accountability wise, or they've crossed lines of no return, or will cross line of no return, you'll save yourself time. I think that's the most important thing that you can learn from the line of no return. Is soon you get wise enough, or you get discerning enough and clear on who might cross a line of no return or who's getting closer to there. So then at that point, you don't even wait till it gets to that point, or almost. You're like, I'm pretty certain they're going to cross the line of no return. And so this method and technique can be very useful in protecting you. It's a self-preservation mechanism in a healthy way. It's a self-protection and safety type of preventive care measure. It's a preventive care measure. The line of no return is like, I already know where my lines stand, right? Know where my boundaries are with people. I can already tell who's potentially going to cross those lines and who I have to cut off before that happens. Because the ideal is that never happens. People don't even get to the point where they get to cross your line of no return. But if they do, they get the consequence. They get the repercussion. They have to live with it. And you end up wise enough to no longer end up in those situations in the first place, because you've already been there, done that. It's deja vu. Already smelt that shit before. Same shit, different toilet. Same people, different archetypes. Same demon, different bodies. Same thing to slay, just making donuts, another day, another dollar type shit. And it's at that point where you're like, okay, I've had enough of this buffoonery. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm done with this clown. I'm done with that clown. I'm done with these clowns. I'm done going to the circus. I'm gonna go to an aquarium. Actually, I don't like the aquarium. They captivate animals. I'm gonna go to the ocean. I'm gonna swim with the dolphins there. I'm gonna enjoy my life, and then I'm gonna go to the shows that I wanna go to with the people I wanna go to, or I'm not interested in this thing anymore. And you realize you gotta stop complaining about the circus and clowns and stop going back to them, or stop letting people become clowns and create a circus in your life. You just figure it out before they do, and you can trust your gut and intuition. People will reveal their hand to you if you pay attention close enough. People will show you how much they trust you, they support you, they love you, they care about you, and how much you can actually trust them, love them, support them, and care about them, and how much you really should. So the more that you listen, the more people will just kind of tell you and show you. It's like show and tell. It's like adult show and tell. Life's just a game of show and tell, and it's mostly everybody else's turn until you take yours. So just listen, pay attention, and be aware that like you might be excited about your show and tell, but they're not actually excited about showing and telling about you. And before that line of no return is crossed, I really hope that you give people no contact, limit access, and set healthy boundaries until they earn access to you. Until they get the privilege of being able to be in your life and be your friend, until they actually communicate with you in healthy ways where you feel like you can trust them to be a part of your life, and like until you develop the reciprocity from them so that you actually want to give more of your energy to them. If they're not appreciative or grateful, why would you give them access in the first place? That's the whole thing. No contact, these consequences, right? No contact, limiting access, setting healthy boundaries, finding professional help, and staying away, forgiving and forgetting. You can do all this before anything happens with people. You can forgive and forget people by thinking of everybody in a positive light, and stay away from people who are unforgivable or unforgettable in the worst ways. Forgive them, pray, let go, meditate, do Ho'oponopono, whatever meditation stuff you can do for healing, Reiki, and sound healing, and send love and prayer to the cosmos or to their higher self, but also send love to yourself. And maybe don't send them love. Maybe just wish them well and pray for the Lord to have mercy on them, or the universe to have compassion, and just stay away. So that's one of those things. Stay away, find professional help, get therapy, get help, talk to AI, talk to friends and family, people you trust, trusted confidants, to get support. And then set healthy boundaries in your life, limit access to people, and keep no contact with the majority of people until they earn access to you. Start with the consequences so you don't have to instill them or punish people. Start with the consequences so people already know how to treat you, so they learn by the standard you set, so you show them how you would like to be treated, not just tell them. And then stay with that routine. So don't just let people back in. Don't just let people keep crossing lines till it gets to the line of no return. Like, see when they're crossing lines, see when it's crossing lines of no return, and it's getting close to that main line, like, or it's even getting 20% of the way. You're like, no, I'm not gonna risk it, I'm not gonna gamble, especially if there's no need to. Like, if it's not worth it, they don't provide really much time, energy, resources, money, love, support, care, or whatever they give you. Why would you risk your safety and sanity and peace on someone who ultimately is a dead end? That doesn't make sense. Why would you risk the line of no return? It's like, I saw a PvP video in RuneScape recently where somebody was risking their bank loot in their inventory. They were risking, like, I think 150 mil, and they went and tried to KO somebody who was risking what they thought was more, and it ended up being 5 mil. So it was like, oof. They were like, it's not worth the risk. And I agreed, because sometimes we do that. We risk too much for too little. So use that kind of rubric for yourself, that blueprint of, like, are they even worth the risk of my line of no return before they can even get close to it? If not, why would I even give them a chance? No. If they cross a line that you couldn't, keep them out, that's one thing, that's beyond your control. But if you have a say in it, you should definitely set those limits where people, like, they get to 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, like, okay, they're done. Like, we're not getting close enough. Or if I can tell that they have patterns, or I could see their body language or nonverbal communication, or I can see how they act, I'm not going to put up with it. I'm going to make sure to get them cut out earlier, because the sooner I can do that, the sooner I can protect my mental health and keep myself safe. So just watch out, be careful, because people will cross lines of no return for you. They can get there if you let them, especially with smaller lines of no return. They can get to the line of no return, and you can do that for others. And you don't want to cross other people's line of no return and lose them for good. Just like you don't want them to cross that for you, but especially because if you cross their line of no return after they've crossed the line of no return for you, they can blame you and make it seem like you're the bad guy. So as long as you keep your side of the street clean, people can't deflect onto you for why relationships ended. They can't blame you. And if they do for setting boundaries or giving them consequences, then that's just gaslighting onto your emotions and your healthy standards. So that's on them, and that's abuse and toxic. So just steer clear of all that toxicity and abuse by realizing what your line of no return is. So figure that out within yourself, sit with yourself. What am I okay with and not okay with? What is that line where I don't feel comfortable with people anymore? What are smaller lines of no return in business and relationships and health and finances and career and whatever it might be, family dynamics? And then, like, use your radar to pick up of people, but don't be hyper vigilant. You just kind of pick up on, like, did this cross the line of no return for me, yes or no? Or is it getting close, or could it get there? And then take preventive measures and preventive care steps to ensure your safety, sanity, and health. And then don't unblock people if you've already blocked them. Usually you should keep them blocked if they're unsafe, if they aren't accountable, if they're not healthy to interact with, or if they use spiritual bypassing or deflection, or if they have an illusory persona and they try to make themselves look like this perfect person, or if they gossip to others and triangulate, get them to side with them, or whatever it might be. Once you block somebody, if they're pathological or if their behavioral insanity is a threat to you, don't risk it. It's not worth the risk, and just keep yourself in good energy and don't let them mess with your juju, and don't try to reach out and put yourself in a vulnerable place where they're going to screw you over again by saying something mean or not responding. just cut them off for good. Stay clear, stay in your lane, let the right good people come to you that don't cross lines of no return or the line of no return, and that can return, that can apologize, that can take accountability, and that can change their behavior consistently over time. Do the work to heal and do the shadow work to integrate and evolve and ascend together and keeping in the healthy rhythms and synchronous flow and connection and building those strong foundations and connections of trust, intimacy, love, care, and respect that can ascend and evolve you into higher dimensions of consciousness or more abundance in your finances and career, or more relational satisfaction and joy in your heart. Those are the things that the line of no return can encourage. And the key is, if you've crossed a line of no return that's like not in a malignant way, it's more benign, like you just hit a place where you now aren't the same with someone anymore, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that means that form of the relationship ended. It's time to change the form of and style of the relationship. You just grow and evolve from there, pivot, figure out what works, and shift and reframe to change your perspective so that the trajectory of the relationship is now more in alignment with what's actually compatible. Hope this helps. Feel free to share how people have crossed lines of no return for you, or how you might be confused on if they have, or how they're maybe getting closer to that. And then also what you do when people don't cross lines of no return, like some of your healthy boundaries or measures. I'd like to know. I think there's definitely a wide variety of ways to do this, but as long as you're aware of it, you're a heck of a lot better off than the people who aren't, or the people who are, who choose to cross their lines of no return anyway. I'm speaking from personal experience.